last chapter was so good is because all those little stories that he told that were so great, that were like found within the book, among all the stuff that was kind of dry, he used those stories wrap up that last chapter. So for instance, he said things like, I don't know if you remember, there was that, was it weasels in the trunk of the car, Mare? I think it was weasels. And he told the neighbor, he's like, they just moved there. Is there weasels here? Because he saw the bird language and he's like, no, I've lived here 20 years. There's no weasels. And then the more he paid attention, he's like, this is definitely a weasel habitat because I can tell from the birds. And then he found like a nest of weasels in the old trunk of this like Volkswagen Bug, right? And like a nest with babies and stuff. So what he eventually said at that, which was a really cool story, but at the end, what he's saying is, this man lived there 20 years, and because he's not one with nature and hasn't listened to the birds and just goes around in his own world, doesn't realize that he is surrounded by weasels. There's no, because the weasels are paying attention, right?
Yeah. No weasels here.
The weasels listen to the birds when he comes, right? And he's like, that's why people live in these homes and say, oh, I've never seen a bear. And then you realize this is a bear's habitat, or this is a whatever, wolves habitat or fox habitat. Deers are everywhere and you don't see any of them because of you and you not being one with nature or paying attention, you are signaling to the birds that you're a danger and they're telling the rest of the animals to hide, right? So he wraps it up the end. I think that's why the last chapter is so good, because you're finally like, this was so dry. You're like, I can't believe I'm still reading this book. And then you get to the last chapter and you're like, yes!
Maybe that's what I'm looking for.
Read the last chapter.
I will. Maybe I'll read the last
like
chapter
it.
and feel the satisfaction.
And it's not even a long chapter. It's like,
ooh, that's nice
kind of wraps
too.
it up.
I love a good short chapter.
Yeah. I'll read the last chapter. I will commit to that.
Oh, you heard it here first, people.
The introduction is kind of like that too, though. Like the introduction had a lot of stuff, and there was a lot of like great like quotes in the introduction where he was talking about stuff.
I like the introduction.
And then definitely the technical stuff. Like you'd have to be a certain person to appreciate that or want to read it. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I think also beyond just like listening to birds, the exercises he gives about like the owl eyes, where like, you know, because like owls can't like turn their neck or whatever. Mm-hmm. Oh no, wait, not their neck. They can't move their eyes.
Move their eyes, yeah.
So they have to, of course, like, owls are all the way around.
Yeah.
But he
in
talks
fact,
about,
they
like,
excel
for that.
That's the thing they're known for. Almost.
you know the owls can't turn their neck.
Everyone knows this, don't they? But like the owl vision thing, where he's like, try to use your peripheral vision to pay attention, or like try to use like hear further away. Like I really like those exercises because it also, like, I'm the type of person that's always inside my head. Like I'm always in my head, right? And when I was like, oh, maybe I'll try this, or try and just like, even if I'm driving, just all of a sudden like just thinking about like feeling the steering wheel. Like if I feel like I'm starting to think about something else, like, oh, what does it feel like my hands on the steering wheel or whatever? It just brings me back to the present. So like those exercises that he was suggesting, like using like trying to use your peripheral vision, or trying to hear something really far away, like the furthest thing you can hear, and that kind of stuff, I thought kind of brought me out of my head, and I enjoyed that as almost like a meditative exercise.
Well, I was going to say, it's like mindfulness, right? And then the thing that is cool about it is like, mindfulness and meditation in some ways is like the fad thing, right? It's become so popular in, you know, therapy and treatment, you know, wellness, but really it's old ancient wisdom, where it's like,
yes,
like the benefits of mindfulness and meditation, which are so popularized now, have always been, right? And that's what you're describing, Mare. Like just sit in nature and you will become mindful, hopefully, anyway. I don't know if it's automatic.
Like it makes me think of forest bathing too. That's like popular, but also nice to go lay in the forest.
And these are old people like with wisdom are like, that's not new. Right? Like
you're meant to be out there and paying attention. Like, why would you go into the forest and not pay attention? You're gonna get eaten by like a mountain lion. Are you crazy?
I just read an article about, because you know I'm studying wine and whatever, but it's about forest bathing and wine, and how there's some people now that are taking people out into the vineyards and into the surrounding forests around the vineyards. And then they do it. It's because forest bathing is you're really, really slow and you think about what everything tastes like and smells like in all of your senses, and you go really slow. And then they make them try the wine at the end. So they try the wine at the beginning, and then they do the forest bathing thing, and they try the wine at the end. And that how everybody says how much more they get from the wine after being within the vineyards and smelling and tasting, and which was kind of a cool, I know it's not about birds or about
but
really
it is.
nature,
It's an exercise.
That's cool.
Yeah. So I thought that was really neat, that concept of how even things like, you know, how we taste after have been affected by being out in nature and in being out in the vineyards and being out in whatever. Yeah.
And I think a lot of the time I don't think about like the smell of places unless I really, really pay attention.
Unless it smells bad.
Yeah.
Well, you know, like
right. Unless it assaults you.
If you're sitting where you are and you're like, what do I smell? Like sometimes it takes a while to like, you know, really think about what those smells are. If it's just like a regular place. I mean, obviously it's like cut's a bad one. Like, you know what that smell is and you can't ignore it. But if you're just like walking in a park or just in your house or whatever, sometimes like smell is not something I think about a lot, you know. Or if somebody says, what does your mouth taste like right now, right?
Yeah.
Like thinking about, right? But like it's that you wouldn't be thinking like unless you've consciously thought about what does that taste, you know.
I always struggle with the what do you taste in your mouth one, because you know an anxiety reduction practice is when you go through your senses. So similar to like what Meredith was doing, like, how do I feel my hands on the steering wheel? And you do like, what are, I don't know, 5 things that I see? What are 4 things that I hear? And then you keep going down and then you get to like, what do you taste? And it's like, what is like 1 or 2 things that you taste in your mouth? And I was like, my saliva? I was like,
taste?
I was like, I don't know. I just had water.
Right? It's a hard one.
It's a hard one. Yeah.
Book interrupted.
Okay, so here's a fun interruption. Periodically at my shop, the toilet starts making bubbling sounds, and I go in and I slowly open the door and I turn on the light, and this is what I see. Bubble party! Oh yeah. So that's not my favorite. There's some plumbing issues. But it's as far as plumbing issues go, is it the funnest plumbing issue? Yes, it is. It's silly and it's fun and it's gross at the same time.
Book interrupted.
So do we recommend the book? Is that?
We should go around. Yeah. Who wants to go first? Mare?
Yeah, I would still recommend the book. I would probably tell people like there's a lot of chirping and stuff. And if you don't like that part, at least read the first part. And if you start getting like being like, this is too much, then skip to the last chapter. Because also the first appendix A kind of just summarizes all the exercises anyway. So I think I still would recommend the book. I think it's like good for people to think about. Maybe they're not super into birds, but maybe I would choose who I'd recommend it to. No, I'm just going to say I'm going to recommend it. I'd probably do the like, if you get bored, just skip to like collision or connection. Oh, connection, not collision, whatever.
No, from collision to connection.
From collision to connection.
From
that one's
connection.
good. But like even the whole intro was really great. And then it got into a lot of like a chip, chip, tree and chirp, chirp, tut, 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 you know? But I still...
And I'm like,
I mean, also even just to like have somebody
This is
like,
hilarious.
to listen to the birds. Like next time we're all together, I'll be like, that bird just went from there to there. And you guys will be like, even though you didn't read the whole book, you'd be like, right?
Yeah.
I guess we'll be like, if you say so.
Yeah, to enjoy with it. So yes, I still recommend the book. I totally like these types of books. I don't mind the chirp, chirp, chirping. I just skip over the sounds and take what I want from it.
I would recommend it if someone wanted to learn these things. I think it's a good book for that. And I like the way he teaches it with his stories. And he does kind of explain the subtleties and the importance, and so I would recommend it, but to a specific audience.
I'm the same. I would recommend it to people, not that I've read it all, but from what you guys say and the stuff that I read, I'd recommend it if you're interested in birds, or if you're interested in learning this and really delving super deep into all those details. Yes, I wouldn't recommend it necessarily if you're looking for a light read or a read about, I don't know, something like a summer beach read. It's definitely not for me.
Yeah. Not in that category.
No.
Yeah,
but
I think
maybe
a summer
this...
camping read.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think I do the same as like Lindsay and Kim, is like I would recommend it to those who I thought might appreciate it. I'd recommend it to myself just because I haven't finished reading it. I've only read a little bit of it. But I really appreciate people that encourage like experiential learning. So I like that. So I would recommend it to myself to circle back in due course and actually finish reading the darn book.
I love that you've recommended it to yourself. That's like how I choose all my books. I read this.
I recommend this to me.
I'm going to take that recommendation.
I'm going to take it and go with it.
That's great.
I would do the same. I'd recommend it with the condition. I would is it condition? Is that how we called it last time?
You condition with caution?
What did we call it again? With caution?
Recommendations with...
Can't remember what we called it. Anyway, I would recommend it. I would recommend it.
That's the smells we were talking about earlier.
I would recommend it to people that are into birds. I actually had a friend, and her niece is obsessed with birds. Like, she took her to different birds, like safari things here and everything. And she wanted me to tell her all about this book, and she was they're Spanish though. We were trying to get it in Spanish, but not in Spanish. But anyway, I would recommend to other bird people who are super, super into birds. I would recommend to them. I'd also recommend it to people who are kind of interested in, being in nature and learning these things. But I'd tell them the middle is very
technical,
specific for different species of birds and how they chirp and stuff. So if it might get dry, so just skip to the end.
Just read the intro and the conclusion.
Well, that's the thing. I think that if you start
really
practicing it, if you start practicing it and then you really start to hearing stuff, you might be like, maybe I'll go back and see what he was talking about. Like all the shapes and stuff. I'm like, okay, I get the shapes, and I'll come back to it when I actually notice more.
Yeah.
Shapes
which
are fine
speaks
too,
to what you were saying in the first place, which is like, here's a book about it, but just go out there.
Yeah.
just go out there and get in nature.
And I think his passion, his excitement can make you say, maybe I should get out there, right? It can be a little contagious when people are excited about something.
Yeah, he's clearly very passionate about this. And he has really cute stories. Like that one, he could tell that there was a student in the bushes or whatever, remember? And he was going to his car, and it wasn't because he saw the student. He's like, could you see me? I was hidden so well. And he's like, oh, the birds told on you.
He's like, oh, that was you, was it?
Yeah, I like these funny little stories about how the
party
birds
tricks.
tell him
Kind of creepy,
Yeah.
I like his little party
knew you were
tricks.
there.
The birds told me.
Do you guys remember we had a challenge?
Told me.
Do you guys remember the challenge? Maybe we should have it ready for the fan episode. Everybody's gonna try to listen to a bird and figure out how to say the birds chip chip chirp.
Say it. I thought we were gonna
write it down.
I wanted to
write it on a piece of
actually
paper?
imitate it.
Are we
Not
imitating
turn it into words. I wanted to actually make the sound the bird makes. Yes. Like
Sure. Oh, that was pretty good.
You've been practicing, Kim.
I know.
I can tell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
I had
very
some birds getting
competitive.
mad
It's a
at me the other
contest,
day.
right?
Wow.
Is it?
Who can get the bird to actually come to them?
Okay, so Lindsay said, during the fan episode, we'll try to answer to our challenges maybe a little bit. We always have these challenges, and then we're like, meh.
Yeah, totally. I love
We do it or we don't.
And
sometimes
Yeah,
we
I'd
go,
love
okay.
to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll try to do the bird noises.
And so Lindsay's
before
gonna do
our fan.
a pigeon, probably, because she lives in the city. Have you ever tried to coo like a pigeon? It's really hard. Somebody did it.
It's me.
Oh, that was.
I'm the bird caller. You didn't know. I don't need this book. That's why I was bored.
Totally.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm
I
gonna
have to
be
say too, it was a nice
Sparrows.
change too, because it was like, yeah, just reading
That's
about the
true.
birds.
It is a good
Yeah.
change. Yeah.
Yeah, the other books are really heavy.
Couple
Like,
heavy content books there, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
So this was kind of a good break.
All
I
right.
actually had
Do
to take a break from
we?
this book to read another book. I read a little bit of a fiction book in between. I'm like, I can't read any more chirping. And I like read a little fiction
I was
book
thinking that
and
like
back.
you would have a hard time with it because you would want to read every word, every chirping word. I'm just like,
Yes, I did.
Holy
I read
chirp.
everyone. I'm like, chicky chicky choo choo. I was like,
chirp,
what?
chirp.
Judy, I'm not gonna remember that. Ever.
You thought you had to remember it.
If you've enjoyed these video highlights, listen to the full episode on our YouTube channel or wherever you get your podcasts. Remember to like and subscribe and ring that bell to be notified when new episodes are published. Find out more by going to www.bookinterrupted.com.
Never forget, every child matters.